Alright, welcome everyone. So, welcome to AP Psychology. This is Simon T speaking. And today we are going to look over to this multiple choice questions of this exam that is coming up in 2026. Okay. As you guys are approaching to this question, I'm assuming that you guys already learned or you guys already studied the previous question. So please don't be panicked as you guys are approaching to this question. It's not rocket science. You guys already know. All you have to do is try to relax. Okay? Alrighty, let's get started to next question. Alright, question 2. Researchers conducted a study with 200 participants who had been diagnosed with schizophrenia and a comparison group of 200 patients who had not been diagnosed with schizophrenia. Okay. Ooh. The researchers found that participants who had been diagnosed with schizophrenia had significantly larger ventricles than a comparison group. Okay, now we found some interesting results here. Based on this finding, the researchers concluded that enlarged ventricles cause people to develop schizophrenia. Which of the following most accurately describes why this conclusion is flawed? Alright, so now we got some interesting studies here. So what's the main key points here? Okay, so they conducted a study with 200 participants. So there is a group A here, right, who had been diagnosed with schizophrenia, and a comparison group of 200 patients who had not been diagnosed with schizophrenia. So now we've got some comparison groups. So this is the sort of strategy we can take notes as you guys are taking the exams coming up. So I'm going to jot it down simply. 200 participants, okay. 200 participants with schizo. I'm going to abbreviate as schizo, and then 200 non-schizo groups, okay. And then we see that they've been diagnosed with schizophrenia, significantly had larger ventricles, okay, than a comparison group. So they found some interesting results, right? All right, let's look up at response A. The researcher's sample is not large enough to allow researchers to draw any scientific conclusions. So, do you think this response might be the answer? The researcher's sample is not large enough to allow researchers to draw any scientific conclusions. So by using the process of eliminations, we can see that based on the response A, now 200 participants who have been diagnosed with schizophrenia, so that's 1, and 200 patients who had not been diagnosed with schizophrenia, that's 2. So they actually use a very large amount of data with a total of 400 participants overall. Okay. Now, in the neuroimaging studies, by looking at the 400 participants as a sample size is extremely large data. So we can conclude that A response is automatically as incorrect, right? So we want to look at the most accurate. Okay. How about choice B? The researchers' results indicate no correlation between the variables. Do you think so? Actually, we can just 100% see from the evidence stating that they actually used the comparison groups, right? The one with the schizophrenia group and one with the non-schizophrenia group, or the comparison group, right? So actually, there is a correlation between the correlation A states with the number of the participants, right, with the schizophrenia versus non-schizophrenia. So this would be considered as an A, and then as a y-axis we can see whether they develop with the ventricles, right? So we can see that there is a correlation between those two. Okay, so I'm going to move out the choice B. By looking at the choice C, the researcher's conclusion does not adequately account for the role of GABA in developing schizophrenia. It sounds kind of interesting, right? But if you guys are actually very intelligent, you guys can automatically see that is there anything that's related, anything in the study that mentioned GABA? No. Why not? Because let me explain this concept for GABA. As we guys look in the unit 1 about biological basis of behavior, it directly states that the role of GABA is the major role it has with the inhibitory neurotransmitter, right? So GABA is inhibitory neurotransmitter. Okay, so an inhibitory neurotransmitter. So it's something that inhibits these certain actions in the brain, right? So, but yes, by looking at this context, GABA does have some roles that plays with, the effect of the ventricles in the brain, but this really doesn't mention anything in this study. So I would immediately exit out, cross it out, C, and what's the remaining here? Choice D, right? The researcher's cause and effect conclusions cannot be made because no independent variable is manipulated. So as you guys look at in the research methods, so independent variable is something that we manipulate the variable, okay? Something that we manipulate. And dependent variable means something that we measure, okay? However, in this context, cause and effect there, yes, the correlation study is conducted, but by looking at the context, we can also see that correlation is not equal to causation, right? Why not? There might be 3 different reasons in looking at a larger context. So one basic reason is that there might be third variable that also interrupts with this context of the study. So for example, if you're looking at the schizophrenia versus non-schizophrenia, maybe there might be some comorbidities. So that would be the mix of schizophrenia and the mix of like bipolar disorders. That could be another variables that completely interrupts, right? So that might be another reason. And the second reason that correlation does not really equal to causation might be the what? It could be the sample sizes, right? I mean, by looking at the study, yes, the total of 400 participants is a very large number of the study, but the studies they might be just mixed up with the experimental design. So they could be done with it could be, for example, it could be like a randomized control trial is the best option, but in this context, the studies might be done with, they could just mix it up with, for example, all men's with the schizophrenia or all, women that are not with the schizophrenia. That might be another variable. So, and the third variable might be just as anything that you guys can think that also interrupts this complete study, okay? So, what's the remaining here? Choice D, okay? So, by crossing it out, each responses that we already know that it's not the answer is extremely important. Just when in doubt, just cross it over each time using the process of elimination and use the SMART strategy, okay? Alright, are you guys all enjoying? Yes, so I think that you guys are already enjoyed by looking up these questions, and you should be able to score 5 on the AP exam that's coming up May, right? Alrighty. Alright, thank you so much for listening to this online lectures, and I'm going to see you guys on the next section. Alright, bye-bye.